Welcome to this 3P conversation, multiple perspectives, with myself and Ian. And today's theme, today's starting point, let's be honest, we don't know the topic, but our starting point today is that feelings are merely feedback. And so
Say that again.
feelings, and we'll flesh out in a bit at what I mean by feelings, but feelings are simply feedback.
Oh,
I think I said merely feedback before.
you said merely feedback, and I thought I heard feelings are the only feedback, and I was going to disagree. But
Oh, yeah. No, you
yes,
can disagree with the only feedback, but they are simply I mean, you can possibly disagree with that they are simply feedback as well.
I could, but I understand what you're saying, and yes, feelings are feedback. Mm-hmm.
Feelings are feedback. And this comes from so many different angles of things that
Mm-hmm.
I've studied. I was listening to an Abraham Hicks. There's like 15-minute segments that they put on YouTube because I imagine people are generally like only wanting those bite-sized pieces, but it's normally 15 minutes pulled from a larger workshop that Abraham Hicks has done. Abraham Hicks, for anybody not aware, is a channeled entity through Esther, I think her
Mm-hmm.
name is.
Esther Hicks. We
And
love Esther and Abraham.
yeah, there's some wonderful insights. There's some things that I am not necessarily aligned with what they teach, but there's some wonderful insights to be had. And the 15-minute thing that I clicked on last night was talking about the feelings of feedback. And if you've got
Mm-hmm.
negative feelings, and I'm not a huge fan of distinguishing feelings into positive and negative, but we all tend to still judge our feelings in that manner, even if we're aware that we're not. Ideally, all feelings are feedback, but we're not necessarily neutral around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so feelings were feedback from Esther Hicks. And then I'm diving back into human design. And in human design, there's our self and our not self, and they're measured by feelings or emotions. And I do not have a nice distinction. I use them rather synonymously. Feelings and
Mm-hmm.
emotions. I'm certain there is a distinction. I'm certain we should have words around how they are different and how they then are different to like a nervous system response, which is
Mm-hmm.
separate again. I don't have good language around it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know that it matters.
I
There are
don't know that it
layers
doesn't. I
of
get annoyed when people get too in. It's a feeling or emotion, and I'm like, can we just, yeah.
yeah, there's some kind of sensation that we're attributing a
Mhm.
label to. Like if we're to break it down, that would
Right.
cover all three of them.
Well, yeah, and so yeah, I guess feelings slash emotions. I would say those are the internal sensations in our
Yeah,
mind and in our nervous system that also do have external presentations and external effects on the body, but they come internally. They are not, it's not attributable to the feeling or sensation of like if I drop something heavy on my foot.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
external. Yeah.
yeah. So that distinction I find hard to put words around. And I think part of the reason we find it difficult to put words around is because it is an internal sensation and it's not
Hmm.
observable from the outside world. So we use language to
Hmm.
describe what we can observe, and that internal, it's a much less tangible, observable pattern, for want of better
Yeah.
language. So the human design stuff speaks about self and not self, and it's talking about alignment, and it measures it based on contrasting emotions, feelings, whatever we're going to call them. So for myself, I have satisfaction and frustration. So satisfaction is when I'm aligned, and
Mm.
frustration is when I'm misaligned.
Ooh. Those
And
are great.
I I think that would be true for you as well, Ian, if I'm remembering your human design chart accurately. And I have like huge. So when I was talking about Tutori, I'm like, we're going to offer all the courses, and she's like, can Ian do human design? I'm like, of course Ian can come and play in the human design realm. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, do each of the alters get their own because it's based on birth
Mm.
time? And I'm like, I don't know, and that's bigger than I understand, and maybe not.
Well, the
My
only, I
brain
mean, we
breaks.
know the body's birth date, and the only alter whose birth date we specifically know is mine, Julian's. My birth date is September 3rd, 2018.
Yeah. But that's what I was thinking. For most of
But
them, you
yeah.
wouldn't have a specific date. And for human design,
No, I
it's down to the
mean,
time that you need.
oh, and I
So,
couldn't give you time. I could give you an estimate. It would have been early morning, maybe 6
yeah,
a.m. ish, plus or minus an hour.
yeah. And
Um,
having said that, you can
mhm.
butcher the human design and find a best fit. Like if you don't actually know,
We
you
might
do
be able to
need
figure out
a
Marcus's
day.
birthday too. Marcus was born spectacularly in a specific moment that
Yeah,
we
so you
remember.
could
But
possibly
we
track
didn't like
that.
write it down at the time, but looking we could probably reconstruct the
Yeah,
date and get pretty close to the time if we wanted to. But there are many of us who all go back to the beginning, who all existed in infancy. And there were others who have been born along the way at various times, and it never occurred to us to like write that down.
no.
So,
It well, and there's an element of they were always there and they emerged in that moment as
mhm,
well, in
yeah.
my understanding of some of it. And so the systems, like the physical body, is where you would work. So from my recollection, because I have got your human design chart, satisfaction and frustration would be your contrast as well. Some of the other
Mhm,
contrasts are bitterness and success.
mhm,
Trying to think what the not self is of the reflector. So their self is delight,
mhm,
and their not self is something else. And then for the manifestors, it's peace and anger. And so it gives a nice contrast of self versus not self. Now, with the human design stuff, I'm still very skeptical. Like I
mhm,
still maintain, and I very much maintain, if this is helpful to you. So satisfaction and frustration clearly resonated quite nicely for you. Like there
mhm.
was a very clean, oh, I like that. If that works as a guide of where we're aligned and where we're not aligned, great. If it's not working, then it's a made up story by someone, like everything else that we're doing in life. Don't use
Right.
it. And so, yeah, I don't know
All
how.
those things, human design and all those other models, I don't see any of them, and and others disagree, and fine. I don't see any of them as like objectively true descriptions of how the universe works, but rather
Yeah.
models that might work for me or might not work for me. And if it works for me, I don't care if it's true.
Yes. Yeah. That's where I land as well. It's like I can't factually prove this,
Hmm.
and it makes me happy. So I don't care. It's not hurting anybody else, and I'm happy.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a reasonably good gauge of, am I going to hold on to this belief and explore through this particular pattern or profile?
Hmm.
Is it helping me, and
Right.
is it not harming me or harming anybody else? Like if it's
Hmm.
causing harm to somebody else, then we may need to reassess. If it's causing harm to ourselves, then we need to reassess. But if it's
Yeah.
helping me and not hurting anybody else, that's fine. So I really, and then part of what prompted me was I was listening to Abraham speak. Abraham talks so much about satisfaction and joy, and if you're feeling frustrated, it's just because you've fallen off your high flying disc. And I'm like, clearly, I'd love to know the human design. Like, if you, and for that, 70% of the population are generators or have a generator component. So the majority of people, satisfaction, frustration is the human design self, not self framework. It's only
Hmm.
a small, like a much smaller percentage that are the projectors, the manifestors, and the reflectors. And the manifesting generators get both the manifestation and generator side of things.
I don't understand any of that, but it sounds amazing.
Well, they're all the different categories of the human design. So
Maybe
it,
we'll be taking the human design course. Mhm.
yeah. So it's fascinating to me to think that everything, not everything, well, everything is feedback. I can probably expand it to everything is feedback, but in this context,
Uh,
the
well,
feelings
I would
are,
argue that consciousness is fundamentally just a feedback loop. It's a little tiny piece of the
yeah,
universe feeding back on itself, really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if we take our feelings as feedback in those moments when we're feeling
Mhm.
frustration, and I've heard feelings of feedback for, I probably would have heard it 10 years ago. Like this is not even 20 years ago. I suspect I heard it when
Oh,
I was going to counseling
yeah.
sessions.
This is
And to be
frequently
honest,
taught in mental health circles and clinical circles. Yeah. Mhm.
what I think I took it as initially was its feedback on other people. So if I'm frustrated, it's feedback that
Oh,
someone else is being a dick.
yeah. I
And
like
I'm
that
all
better.
I like that way better.
Uh-huh.
What I'm realizing more recently is it's feedback that I'm in misalignment and that
Mm,
it's generally so any of the what's considered negative emotions, and like I said, I don't really like distinguishing between negative and positive emotions, but
mhm,
I still do it, even if I know that all emotions are feedback and I should be reasonably neutral. I would like to be reasonably neutral about them. The reality is
mhm.
there's some that I like better than others. And when
Yes.
I'm
And
feeling
that's kinda how we frame it. We don't like the framing personally, just our preference. We don't
mm,
like to call emotions positive or negative because the negative seems to have a connotation of, like, we shouldn't be feeling that or it's bad or
yeah,
it's wrong, when in fact, it's just a different sort of feedback. We like to say there are emotions that we find, you know, productive in the moment or less productive in the moment, or that we enjoy more in the moment or we don't enjoy more. And even then, the ones we don't enjoy, we can find beauty in, as we've been learning to find tremendous joy and beauty in grief. And grief is not something that's
yeah,
normally pleasant to sit in.
yeah. Yeah, I had a moment the other day. I think the person I was chatting with was probably a little bit confused because I there was a song that had been shared and I commented, I'm like, some of my parts like feel really seen by that and also like really pissed off for having been left behind. Like there was just
Mhm,
this realization and I'm like, and I'm sitting in this delightful sadness. And
mm,
the combination of delightful and sadness, I think broke the other person. It's like,
mm,
huh? What? Like it just, but it was this moment of, it was a moment of realization, partly of why I can't get rid of my scrapbooking stuff because I haven't
mm,
closed off that identity.
mhm,
And then the resentment and the bitterness and the frustration of that identity that all bubbled to the surface. And there was a lot of sadness and grief and tension in that. And yet to have brought that to the surface and actually connected with it instead of it just being this passive aggressive, we're just going to keep moving the, like I'm moving the chairs on the Titanic with the scrapbooking stuff. We don't have space for it. It needs to go. I haven't used it in over a decade. Like if
mhm.
you do all of the traditional decluttering, it's like, have you used it? Does it bring you joy? No, and no, and no. And I don't have space for it. Like it doesn't.
Right.
And yet it's been moved for the last probably 5 years. I keep moving it rather than letting it go. And what I realized in this delightful sadness was that that's driven by an identity that feels like it was cast aside rather than up leveled and
Mm.
given the choice to change focuses.
Ooh, yes, lack of
Yeah.
agency.
Yeah,
Mhm,
huge lack of
mhm,
agency. And it, I mean, when I left the scrapbooking world, it was a hard cut. Like there was
mm,
no gentle transition. And I did the same with the identity, except that the identity
mhm,
I just cut off and stuck in, I, reminded of like in Inside Out, where joy is stuck sadness in the
mhm.
circle. It's like stay in the circle, do not
Yeah.
leave the circle. Now there are
Mhm,
amazing gifts. There is so much that that time of my life in the scrapbooking brought me, and there was some significant hardships and challenges, hence the like cutting it off. But
Yeah.
I don't talk about it. And I'm noticing myself, like, I'm like, oh, look, now you're talking about it and you're being open about it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that's the piece that has just felt so neglected, is that
Mhm.
I achieved great things in that space. And I literally, as I'm writing out resumes, as I'm writing out achievements and all of the things, as I'm like starting to go back into marketing, the stuff in my
Mhm.
scrapbooking wasn't even on the list. Now, I did amazing things in that period of time. I was the fastest growing team in whatever
Mhm.
year it was.
Yeah.
I recruited the most people in whatever year it
Mhm.
was. Like I did amazing things. And yet I had just completely disconnected from that. And so there's a huge grief
Mhm.
in that identity having been merely lost. Like it's not gone, but it was lost. And now it's sort of been found again and reclaimed. And I'll start leveraging as I'm
Mhm.
going back into marketing. She was an awesome marketer. Like she did really
Mm.
well. And as I think back, I don't know, I'm like on a huge tangent. That's okay. I'll come back in a second. But
We like it.
the giving away the courses, I haven't spoken to my current business mentor. I'm not entirely sure that she's going to be like, "Oh, that was a great idea, Amy." I think she's going to be more, "What the fuck are you doing, Amy? Like you giving away, like you could just be selling these courses rather than giving them away." I'm more than content to give them away and have people to play with. That works for me.
Mhm.
But with my scrapbooking days, one of the reasons that I did so well in the recruiting was they gave away easy presses, and they were the highest costing tool
Mm.
in the scrapbook catalog. And I gave
Mhm.
away 3 of them. And I remember my manager, I put the post up on Facebook, and my manager was on the phone within about 3 minutes going, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what
Really?
what on earth? What has possessed you to do this?" And her and I had very different approaches to lots of things. Like, there was often
Yeah.
times I would say stuff and she'd be like, like, can you go back and explain that? And when I explained my thinking behind it and the rationale, she did actually go, okay, I can see why that will work for you. Go forth, do your thing. Like she was
Yeah.
content with it, but it was just this moment of, huh? What are you thinking? But in that moment, in that moment, for me, I was fully aligned. She was frustrated because for her it would be such a misaligned action, but for me it was aligned. And one of the things that I love about her was how open she was. She's probably the first person that I recall consistently giving me permission to be all of me. So while she'd
Mm.
ring and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" it was with such love and compassion and a
Oh, right.
genuine curiosity of, "I am baffled by your weirdness right now, but I love you and I wanna understand it."
So it wasn't "you idiot." It was, "No, really, what the fuck are you doing?"
I think there was an element of "you idiot" in it to start with until I'd unpacked
Uh-huh.
it a little bit because she could not
Yeah.
see. But it definitely came from a place of curiosity. Like she was so accepting of my weirdness and my quirks and my
Uh-huh.
uniqueness. And I will forever be grateful for that because that really opened the door for me into personal development and realizing that are people that will accept me as I am. And whether that's long term or like that appears to have been a seasonal relationship at the moment, that's okay.
Mhm.
But it definitely opened the door. But in that moment, I was completely satisfied. Like there was nothing that was going to rattle me anyway. Like that conversation, I'm
Mhm.
like, no, I'm happy to justify this, and I will because she was coming with compassion. If she'd come with an energy of like you're an idiot, I'd have just told her to piss off.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I felt completely aligned in that moment. It was just
Mhm.
utter satisfaction. And then when I
Mhm.
look at moments of frustration, so my husband left this morning. He started work at, well, he said 5 a.m. I don't think he left until 10 past 5, which was irking me slightly because if he starts at 5 a.m., then he should have been out of the house well before 5 a.m. But
Mhm.
I was starting to feel quite frustrated
Mhm.
because I had to get up and I wanted the heater on and I wasn't going to do that until after he left. I don't know why I can't do that one until after he left. Like that was a weird rule that I imposed. But that frustration that I was feeling I realized after he left and I started pottering around and doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I want to project that onto, well, I was frustrated because he was being an idiot.
Right.
I was frustrated because he wasn't respecting my expectation that I hadn't informed him of. And so if I
Look
haven't
at you.
informed him, but that for me is part of my human design alignment. So I have,
Yeah.
I meant to respond and I meant to inform. And what I'm
Mm.
noticing more and more is that a lot of my frustrations come from not having informed.
Mm.
Now, a lot of my hesitations in informing come from childhood conditioning, where I have informed and then been rejected, shut down, ignored, like pick your friggin' response. And I've got all of them over the years when I've
Yeah,
responded.
all of them. Mm-hmm.
And so, but that still means that I'm not being aligned. My conditioning has influenced me to not be my true self, which is true for everybody. The conditioning that we experienced, most of it, some of it, I mean, the stuff with Carol, my scrapbooking lady, that started conditioning me into being my true self. It allowed me more freedom. Like it
Oh.
gave me a different response. So if I informed her, which I didn't do, so I took action with the let's give away 5 easy presses. I hadn't informed her of that. And so she showed up with the, what are you doing? And in there was a moment of frustration for me. But if I look back, it's that me not following what I meant to. I meant to
Mm.
inform the people that my decisions are going to impact. And me giving away 5 easy
Mm.
presses was definitely going to impact my business manager. Like that's something that is important. Me wanting the house to myself for half an hour before the podcast and nobody up and under my feet is going to impact my husband,
Mm-hmm.
who said he was going to work at 5 o'clock, which I suspect is why I didn't inform. Because, like, and I can play that both sides. But there is definitely an element of this emotion that I'm feeling is stemming
Mm-hmm.
from me not, and to take it out of the, I mean, it's me not informing in the human design world, but to take it into any of the other personal development, it's me not holding a boundary. Now, a
Mm-hmm.
boundary has to be
Mm.
communicated. Otherwise, nobody knows the rules. You can't, I mean, I can and I frequently do change the rules without telling anybody, but it doesn't work very well.
Yes, but telling someone about a boundary is scary.
Well, yes, and now we're back to the conditioning.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that moment of frustration, it's like I'm not aligned with who I want to be and not aligned with what works well in terms of whether it's expressing the boundary, whether it's informing, whether it's like pick any model and you can apply a model to, it's one of the reasons I love models. Every model can be applied to every situation generally, not
Okay.
always exactly the
Yeah.
everys. That's a huge generalization. And so if the feelings or the emotions or whatever we're calling them are feedback, that feedback in that moment is like, I'm feeling frustrated. What's that telling me about me? Because I can
Mm-hmm.
make it tell me a whole bunch of things about my husband. And that's far, far more comfortable. I can make it tell me a whole bunch of things about a lot of things. What's it telling me about me? What was the piece where I abandoned myself? Now, I could have said to my husband, get out of the house. Like I could have expressed that. And he would have, if I'd said, I want to get ready for this, and he got it quickly up and ready as quickly as he could. He is
Mm-hmm.
not an early morning person. But that piece of noticing, and it's the same when someone cuts you off when you're driving and that frustration bubbles up. What's it telling us about us? Because generally, if I'm impatient, that's when I get cut off and I get frustrated. Like I want to get
Mm.
somewhere, there's something, it's like something else is in my way because I'm in a state of expectation and impatience. But if
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood and somebody goes to merge in front, they don't get the option to cut me off because I'm letting them in.
Mm.
And so that frustration only comes in when I'm so self-focused and everybody else should get off my road and why there are other drivers that exist today. And you can expand that to anywhere where I've got to deal with other
Oh, I
humans.
mean, yeah, all the things. Yeah.
yeah, so it's these moments of what are we noticing in ourselves and what's that telling us about our expectations, about our actions, about our lack of actions, generally speaking. Like, and there are moments where I'll say something stupid's the wrong word, but I'll say
Mm-hmm.
something harsh or I'll say something
Mm.
cruel, and then I'll feel like a disappointment or that's meant to happen. Guilt is actually a good emotion in that it tells us when we are living out of alignment with who we want to be.
Yes, guilt can be very useful. Shame, less so useful.
Yes.
Um,
And
mhm,
internally driven, like that, where we're
mhm,
choosing the guilt ourselves rather than when it's being imposed on us by another. Like if we're
mhm,
engaging in it rather than doing it in response. And I think that was the other thing I was going to bring into this conversation. There are so many responses that we have that are conditioned and became what was safe. So
mhm.
I noticed with someone I was with the other day, they made a mistake and they instantly went to shame, and then they went to, now I need to be punished.
Yeah.
And it was completely like I saw the chain and I'm like, you've been taught that.
Mm.
That's
Mhm.
that's and it's how you keep yourself safe. Not in this house. Like that's not how it works here. But
Right.
that chain of I'm going to punish myself before somebody else does because that's how I keep myself safe. That's how I make sure that the punishment is something I can handle.
Yeah.
And it was, and I'm like, in those moments where we're confronted by somebody else's emotion, we're taught the emotion that's the right one to respond. So
Mm.
anger, for example, guilt is a really good response for me. And often it turns into like a shame end of guilt rather than
Yeah.
the distinguishing feature for me between guilt and shame is I did something bad versus I am bad. So guilt is I did the wrong thing. Shame is
Mhm,
I am the wrong thing, like I'm a bad person. And
mhm.
everyone's going to have different language around that.
Yeah, that yeah. I mean, that is the oversimplified thing, but I do find that oversimplification useful often
Yeah.
in figuring
Yeah,
out, wait, which one am I feeling right now?
yeah.
Mhm,
And again, we're back to the trying to put words around feelings. The
mhm.
words feelings by definition aren't describable. They're an indescribable sensation. And so
Right.
they the more we try and put language around it, the muddier it gets because
Mhm.
and they're not normally that clean. So we simplify it because we can't quite describe. Like between guilt and shame, there's probably 3 billion nuances.
Oh,
And try
yeah.
to put all of that into language would break ChatGPT because I managed to do that the other day.
Yeah. Because you are too much, Amy.
Because I am too much.
Uh-huh.
But even that, I noticed in that pattern,
Mhm.
the you are too much, and it didn't directly say you are too much. I can't remember what it said, but that what I heard was you are too much. My
Yeah.
instant physical response to that is what I've learned over the last 45 years, getting you are too much for, and there's like, I've had that in so many different iterations and so many different places, but the how I feel in that moment is conditioned. It's
Mhm.
not a choice in that it's just an automatic response. And so catching it in that moment and navigating through, it's like, okay, well, this feeling is feedback. Is this feeling feedback on the situation? Does ChatGPT hate me?
Mhm.
Or
Wow.
or is this feedback on what I've been conditioned? Because ChatGPT doesn't care. ChatGPT wasn't even coming with an emotion. ChatGPT was just existing and I was engaging with it. Like there was
It's just a
no,
math problem. That's
it's
it.
just
Yeah.
just a math problem. Like some of them can be quite traumatic too.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Been relearning calculus for home education. Some of the maths problems And so is it feedback on this current moment, or is it feedback on what's left over from my past?
Mm-hmm.
And so allowing ourselves to explore that. And I would say most of the time it's feedback on the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that I manage to stay fully present and not let the past or the future, like both of those, creep into my thinking a lot. It's like, what will be the consequence of this in the future? Will this come back to bite me later? What was the consequence of this in the past? Which is still a math problem. It's like past plus future equals present, basically.
Yes,
And it
and
doesn't
that's
have
very
to.
natural for humans. One of the things
Yeah.
that sets humans apart is our ability to run counterfactuals in our head and make predictions based off of those counterfactuals.
Yeah.
And that requires past information and some idea of what's likely or not likely in the future.
Yeah. Which brings us to all emotions are valid.
Mm-hmm.
And I may or may not be slightly literal. But where I take that to is all emotions are valid. They're not always sound. And so the principles of valid and sound in critical thinking,
Uh-huh.
which I learnt from you or deepened my awareness of with you. So all emotions are valid. We've generally come to that. If you laid out the how we got to that conclusion, the formulas would be accurate. Like it's a valid logical conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
When we lay it out, though, some of those assumptions that we're using to create our outcome are not sound. So, for example, you are too much from ChatGPT, I equate to you are shit. I can't
Right.
handle you right now means that I am, and that's flawed logic.
And
Those,
therefore I must be smaller, I must be less. I'm yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes. And so I am too much, and maybe I am too much, like whatever. At this point, you want less, go find less. Like, if I'm too much, go find
Right.
less. Like, that's where I'm at right now. I don't always sustain that, let's be clear. There are times where I'm told I'm too much and I do just shrink to try and fit in or belong
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. To take the you are too much and not see the I'm not enough on the other side, but to also flip it and just, well, no, it's not that I'm too much, it's that you're not enough. Like, there's problems in the logic in how it nuts out. The emotion is
Mm-hmm.
valid. I've come to that emotion somehow. And there's a process, there's an experience in my past, but generally I'm taking an anecdotal experience and
Mm-hmm.
conflating it across all other experiences that look the same.
Yeah.
And so, sure, in that one experience, it navigated out. Is that going to be true of all experiences all the time? And this is where we start to challenge some of our underlying assumptions or beliefs or whatever we want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
to then challenge the emotions. So, and then it's the cause and effect violations. So I was frustrated this morning because my husband didn't leave the house on time. It's a cause and effect violation. I was frustrated this morning because I had an expectation and it was unmet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to look at, well, why did I have that expectation? And how many times am I going to hold the expectation that my husband is going to leave the house when he says he is going to, when I have no evidence to support that ever?
But you want it.
I do want it.
Uh-huh.
And that's not entirely true. I'm sure he has at least once or twice left the house on
Right.
time. Like, it. Well, and I mean, with him, and if he was starting at 5 p.m., he'd have left at 4 p.m. because at 5
Right.
p.m. he's had a decent sleep and he's not trying
Mm-hmm.
to wake up. When he's starting at 5 a.m., he's going to leave at 10 past 5. And depending on what the train is doing and where he's got to meet the train, and like there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of factors that go into that. But he's not a morning person. Now, I've known that for, oh God, it must be going on nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
This has been a long time since I've known we've known each other more of my life than not now.
Mm-hmm.
far more of my life than not. So that expectations, like, how did you create the faulty expectation, Amy? And like you say, it's that's what I want. It's a desire rather than something grounded in, I hate the word, but reality as
Yeah.
such. And so all of our feelings are valid, and it is worth unpacking a little bit how we get there. It's also just worth acknowledging that they're okay and they're feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
if we can tap into, it's like, what's the feedback this is giving me in this moment? Then we can start to free ourselves to start to change the equations that are creating the emotions in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we seek to build, whether it's satisfaction or delight or peace or success,
Mm-hmm.
which are the four from human design, or whatever else you want to build, because I'm not going to limit it to those four.
Sure.
If we start building that muscle and bring that in as our default, this is one of the things I'm loving with laughter yoga. The default becomes to laugh, to feel light about things. And the more we practice, and it's a practice, it is a consistent, you've got to show up and do these things as a practice to rebuild the muscle, because we've been practicing what
Mm-hmm.
we've got as our default emotion for so long. And frustration was my default emotion for so long. Like, there was no concept of satisfaction. There was no concept of, and frustration was how I got motivated. When I stopped being angry all the time, my house got messier.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was angry, I would clean. And when I was not angry, I would not. Now I'm starting to learn to clean while happy. The house is starting to get cleaner again. But
Yeah.
it was one of those things. I was creating this amazing mess for myself, literally and physically. And not literally, metaphorically and physically. Because I only clean when I'm frustrated, and I'm frustrated all of the time. So that worked all right. I was constantly cleaning.
Well, and
When
then
I
you can, if part of you knows you need to be cleaning, then you will create the frustration to
hate
create
the
the,
frustration.
because like, I mean, cleaning's such an interesting example. We do all our best cleaning when our system is dysregulated and can't concentrate on sinky talky things.
Yep. Yeah. And so if
And so
that's the
then,
rules that we've set up,
yeah, then that means we have to be dysregulated when it's cleaning time.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that, but yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that, except that we think it means that. And so
Mm-hmm.
we sustain it. And so we can then break that and go, I can clean when I'm frustrated. I can do other things when I'm frustrated, because the constantly cleaning, I needed to learn to be productive in other ways, because I would get frustrated with an assignment and I would clean, which would make the house tidy. It would not complete the assignment. And so I
Yeah.
had to learn to follow through on, it was business tasks by the time I was working it out. Through uni, it was, I don't even know how I got through uni with the assignments, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I was frustrated, I was cleaning, to the point that I cleaned the oven in the collective dormitory kitchen. Like, there was
Mm.
50 of us had access, 50 like end teenagers, 20-year-olds. And I went up and I
Oh,
cleaned that oven one day because I was so frustrated. Yeah.
yeah.
I never cooked on it. Even after I'd cleaned it, I still didn't cook on
Mm.
it. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but that moment I had to learn with it's like, okay, I'm feeling frustrated. I still have to sit here and focus on this. Like, I have to actually, and sometimes cleaning will, like writing my books. If I'm writing a book, the house tends to end up
Mm-hmm.
quite tidy because I will clean instead of write. Like, it just becomes a
Mm.
distraction. There's an element of, I'm feeling dysregulated. I don't want to deal with the writing things. Let's go and deal with something. And the
Yeah.
cleaning is way easier to solve. It's like, the dishes are dirty. I can
Mm-hmm.
clean them.
Yeah.
This paragraph that I'm writing is creating emotional feeling that I've got no idea. Like, it's much harder to navigate through, and there's not necessarily, like, it's a predicament, not a problem, and it's
Yeah.
much easier to go and find a problem to solve rather than navigate the predicament. having said that, I've written 3 books and have navigated many a predicament in the process and after the process. I'll have to find where the typo is in the book. I literally opened the Create a Home You Love book, and somewhere in there it says 1, 2, 3, D.
Oh
Like
no.
clearly.
Oh no. No, 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 no. Oh my God.
It's like, how did we not catch that in editing?
Like I just hearing that, and it's not even my book or my problem or my predicament, and I like my anxiety is through the roof. Like, no.
That's one of the things that writing the books and publishing them really freed
Mhm,
me from was
mhm.
there's always going to be something that's missed in editing.
Yeah,
There's
but not
typos
one,
in
two,
all.
three, D.
Maybe I need to send my books to you to edit before I
Yeah.
publish them. There's always some, and part of the
Uh-huh.
issue that I find. So Michael attempted to edit my first book, which was
Mhm.
my journey through the first year as a mum with postnatal depression. And he got so consumed by the story, he could not edit it. Like, he just couldn't manage to
Oh.
separate from, and hadn't realized. Like, I remember him coming out to me.
Mhm.
I don't even think he'd got through the first chapter. He's like, I had no idea. And part of me went,
Mhm.
how are you so oblivious? And how do I get some of that? Like, his obliviousness is the most frustrating and admirable thing that I've ever encountered.
There is true bliss in obliviousness.
What is it? Ignorance is bliss. Oh,
Mhm.
kittens. Um,
Oh, and
there's
we get stuck on books where we can't enjoy the narrative because we can't stop editing the copy in our mind.
I was reading something last night and I giggled to myself. So they had two, I think it was 2 R words and then an F
Mhm.
word, or like, and I'm just like, there's a really, oh no, it was E. It was, you
Mhm.
could express, explore, and grow bigger. And I'm like, can't we have express, explore, and
And
expand?
expand.
Like, it was
You and I
just,
are both like, no, it should be expand. Why?
why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like,
So we
usefulness
are
was, and I have no idea
as
what it
as a
was that I was even
system.
reading. All I remember was my frustration with
Well, yeah, but no, I couldn't do that. As a system, we're a recovering addict, and we have a really hard time with they call it the big book, and there's all this ugh, they treat it like it's the holy scripture, from the monad or whatnot. But like we'll be reading it, and in our head, like we understand the value in what the author was trying to say in that section, and it's horribly written. It's
oh,
awful. And even for its and for one thing, it's written in 1930s
I should say it would have
theistic
been written a
gender.
long time ago.
Yeah, so it's written pushing 100 years ago, and so in a style that was not exactly the height of efficient writing in the first place, and it's full of theistic and gendered language that we can't tolerate. And even for the time, it's just not that well written. I mean, the person who wrote it, has done a lot of good in the world and all that, and we acknowledge on that, and writing was not his strong suit.
Yeah.
And so even as we're reading it and people are like, stop, they're like, there's nothing wrong with how it's written. And we were like, yes, it is. Nobody ever edited this thing. Like it could have been, this page could have been condensed into a paragraph and had exactly the same meaning in it.
Yeah.
There's all these words and punctuation marks that don't belong. And so we have to like be conscious about which one of us is going to read this today and not get pissed off.
And not lose their shit with it. it's
Yeah.
it's something I often struggle with, and it's something I'll often struggle with. More recently, it's been with coaches and mentors
Hmm.
where they will use a word and I'm struggling with it, and I'm like, I need to put this. I don't need you to change the words you're using because that's
Mhm.
an unrealistic expectation on my part, and it's not fair. But I need to at least find a word that I can translate it to in my head that makes sense to me.
Right.
And if I can't do that, then I'm going to really struggle to stay. Like, I'm still pondering 5 sentences ago when you use that word that triggers me, or like just doesn't align, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's easy to spend 2 minutes with me and just work out what the word is, and then I'll focus on the rest. And once I've got that piece, but I will often get stuck in. So I resonate with it. Just like if you're reading it, it's like, how do we read this without getting consumed by wanting to rewrite the entire book? And maybe it's time the entire book was updated and revised.
Yeah, it has been reissued in editions, but it's not, and there are new forwards to each edition, but I don't know that the actual original language has been all that edited or anything for the modern world. So,
And there's a point, and people have given me the feedback. It's like, you just need to take the message. Forget about the medium. Forget about how it's
Mhm.
being delivered. You just need to take the message. I've never found that to be particularly easy, though. Like, I find that it's like, if it was
Mhm.
just, and I don't mind if I rewrite it myself. Like, I'm more than content to rewrite it and make it into what makes sense to me.
Mhm.
But I need that. I need it if it's something I'm going to follow, which I imagine is the goal of this book for you. This is
Mhm.
something I want to follow. It's something I want to utilize. I need it written in a way that it makes sense. Because if I can't make sense of it, I can't follow it.
Some of us can make sense of it and roll our eyes and grit our teeth and then digest the value for the rest of us. So
Yep.
that's kind of how we do it. So we are able to pull value out. Um, and there are some, there are some things in there that we just sort of have to rewrite in our head as we're doing it.
Yeah.
It'll, and the program is very, they say it's not a religious program, the addiction recovery program. It is. It's super religious, and it's steeped in a specific religion. Like, it just is. It's mid 20th century mainline Protestantism is woven throughout it.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's so much God in it. Like, there's a lot of find the higher power, and I think they
Mhm.
expand God to higher power, but that's not necessarily going to expand the
No,
philosophy
we don't.
behind what they're teaching.
And it's hard to point it out because they are fish swimming in water, and if they're all mainline Protestants, they're not going to recognize that they're swimming in a mainline Protestant program because that's all they. So
That's all they know.
um they're whenever we question it, it's very much the fish saying, I don't understand what's water.
Yeah.
um but some of the
Have,
language, they'll say God, and we say that, that doesn't work. We don't believe in God. Then they say, well, the God as you understand him. And we're like, well, God as you understand him still assumes a monotheistic entity that is a he. You're still building that into the language you're using.
yeah. And even higher power, the language around the higher, it can
Hmm.
become quite controversial
it,
depending on
it
my mood.
assumes that there is some otherworldly thing that is, if not monotheistic, there's, what's the other word, monolithic or unified, and that it has authority over us, and we don't
Yeah.
believe that either.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I was sensing that
So,
higher power wasn't going to be your easy shift. It's interesting. I remember years ago, because we did attend church reasonably consistently for a period of time. And so I had people on
mhm,
Facebook from church, and another person from somewhere that was an atheist. And
mhm,
they were debating about the value of believing in that higher power, believing in God. And the atheist was able to find a research study, and I don't know that I'd be able to find it again, that said it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe. I think your internet's just a little bit dodgy.
mm.
I'll just wait for Ian to come back. And we'll edit it in post. It.
We are professionals.
We are professionals. Absolutely. So I don't know how much you heard of that, because the
The atheist and the study. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And I
there's
think I know
stuff.
what you're talking about. It's less about the specifics of what you believe in, but there are some people that just they need that something.
Well, it was more that you needed to be clear on what you believed. So whether you
Ah,
believed
okay.
in God, whether you believed in a higher power, or whether you took on a specific, I don't know what an atheist belief looks like. Um, specific, like you believe in nothing, whatever it is that you believed in, as long as
Mhm.
there was the conviction in the belief, it was sustainable for things like recovery and
Mhm.
well-being and those kinds of things. And so it was less about
Yeah.
having to find, but more about knowing, I hate these words, but knowing your truth and what it was for you in that space. Because let's face it, we
Yes.
don't know. We don't know whether there is a higher power that is ruling over us. We don't know whether we're living
Mhm.
in the matrix and we're in a computer simulation. We don't
Yeah.
know. We don't know. And
We
so we
don't,
come
which
back
is the
to,
position of, I mean, we are, if you know, to be very literal, we are an agnostic atheist, which means we don't claim knowledge and we don't claim belief in any of it. And
yeah,
so, yeah, we don't know. But you know, we have friends whose spiritual paradigms appear silly to us, like
mhm,
internally inconsistent and sort of absurd. And yet those paradigms are keeping them sober and making them happy. So fuck it. Who
yeah.
cares?
Well, and
Right?
that's where I was just about to go. We come back to where
Yeah.
we started with, if it's working for you
Mm-hmm.
and it's not hurting anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Like
Yeah.
it's I'm not entirely sure what I believe. I definitely believe there is some higher power, but part of the reason I like believing that there is a higher power
Mm-hmm.
is because then I get to rage and blame someone else every now and then. Like it is completely self-serving.
Yeah, and that's okay. So if you, I don't think you've met, if you have, I don't remember it. I don't know if you've met Captain yet.
I think I did. We definitely talked about Captain. I can't remember if he came out or not when we were talking about religion last time.
He may or may not. He sometimes comes out when we're talking about religious stuff. So he's one of the monotheists inside. We have a handful who have a monotheistic belief system.
So
And
just
it,
unpack monotheistic for me because I don't understand it. I'm assuming others may not either.
oh well, Captain believes that there is a God and there is just one God,
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So
and that God
monotheistic
is
is one god.
he is theistic and that he has a God belief, and he's monotheistic because he just believes in the one
He
God.
has just one. Yep.
Um, and Captain would tell you, he's not fronting right now, but he's listening. Um, Captain would tell you that he has to believe in that one God,
Yeah.
otherwise he'll go nuts.
Yep.
That he can't prove it to himself, he can't prove it to the rest of the system, he can't prove it to other humans, and he doesn't fucking care. But that belief is basically keeping him sane,
Yep.
and
And
by
so it's
extension,
working
keeping
for him,
us.
and it's not necessarily hurting anybody else.
It doesn't hurt the rest of the system that he believes it. It doesn't hurt other humans that he believes it. And in fact, to the extent that that belief is helping him, it's also by extension helping the system, because then he's not tempted to do destructive things.
Yeah.
So we are happy, even if the rest of us don't believe that. Fine, buddy. If that's good, and I don't mean that came across patronizing. I didn't mean that way, but like genuinely, if that belief is helping you and you're happy, then great. Let's
Yeah.
do that. And he
Yeah.
doesn't judge the rest of the system for not believing it. So,
Yeah. Well, and I
mhm,
think that's when we're in a space of we don't know,
mhm,
what so many people forget is we don't know. And
mhm,
they will defend to the point that it starts either like passively causing harm because you just become a
mhm,
dick around other people, or quite overtly. Like there are so many Christian movements that have actively caused harm to others in the
mhm.
process of pursuing their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm not so keen on it. It's like if you've got the belief and it's working for you and it's not hurting others,
Mhm,
go forth, enjoy. When you've got the belief and you start using it as an excuse to hurt others, that's where I
Mhm.
start to have a problem.
Yes.
And all of them teach, like, you cannot find me the religion that at its core says we are better than and should hurt everybody else. Now, there's elements of that in the interpretations.
Mhm.
I remember having this debate with someone and they said, "You've never read the Bible." And I'm like, "I've read bits of it." And I then went and
Mhm.
I read the entire Bible cover to cover in like 3
Mhm.
months to be able to go, "Well, actually, I have." And while there are definitely stories of God supporting going out and doing stupid things,
Mhm.
most of it is the human interpretation that is the issue. And you're going to struggle to convince me that God wrote the Bible. Bible was written by people interpreting messages from what they perceived as God.
Yeah, messages that maybe they came up with internally, maybe they were downloaded from something above, maybe they were spoken to by a god or gods, maybe they, I don't know. I don't fucking know.
Again, we're back to we don't know. Have you seen the Book of
And
Mormon?
then 300 years after Christ, a bunch of people got together and decided which books were going to stay in and which books were going to get
Which
left
books were
out.
not?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen the Book of Mormon musical?
indeed. We've seen it on stage a couple of times. Yes.
I'm reminded of the "You're making things up again, Arnold," which is
Mm,
currently like a catchphrase in our heads. Like, "You're making things up again, Arnold." And
mhm,
Arnold is doing his best to make things up that are going to make things better for the people that he's speaking to. But he's
mhm,
definitely making them up, and they're not interpretations from a higher. They're him seeing
mhm,
something going, "I deem this as bad, I'm gonna give them an alternative." Now, I'm
mhm,
the examples in the movie, which I'm not gonna speak on this recording, but like,
mhm,
they're things that I too would deem as bad, and offering alternatives seems a good stepping place forward. But it's definitely a human coming
mhm,
in with an interpretation and a judgment. And there's an old saying, it's like, if you find the church that is filled with perfect people, leave,
yeah,
because you will break it. And the
yeah,
reality is if you peek into the church that is filled with perfect people, it's empty. There is
mm,
nobody in, like, none of us are perfect. We are humans. We are, I don't know whether we want to go with flawed or sinful or whatever, but there are definitely parts of me that are not operating for my best or everybody else's best at times.
mhm,
And in human design, we call that not self and self. Like, there's
right,
different ways to approach that. There are
mhm,
definitely times where I am not the best version of myself, and that's
mm,
okay. Like, I don't think that that needs condemnation or forgiveness or any of that, but there is definitely this space of, we're all imperfect people moving through.
mhm,
We bought carrots yesterday, and I get that this sounds like a really weird
mm,
tangent, but we bought carrots yesterday, and they have a brand here that is, um it's imperfect carrots. So it's the
mm.
ones that you wouldn't normally find in the supermarket because 'cause they're
Oh, yes,
twisted or they're, but
mhm,
on their brand, so they're the imperfect carrots, but the way it's
mhm.
written, it says "I'm perfect," because imperfect and I'm
Oh,
perfect are the same letters, just rearranged.
oh, oh my gosh, I love that.
And I think as
Oh,
humans, we have to remember that we are mutually imperfect and I'm perfect concurrently.
we love that, and yet we will get, because sometimes those carrots here or stuff like that will be on sale because nobody wants to buy it,
Well,
but
these are
we were
like
just gonna,
so
like,
much cheaper than the
yeah,
other brands because they're,
we were just gonna, like, put them in soup anyway,
yeah, it
right?
doesn't matter.
So,
I don't need perfect
yeah,
mind you, the
mm,
bag of carrots I bought yesterday, so normally they are, like, gnarly and they've got, like, extra
yeah,
bits. They kinda look like the carrots that I managed to grow that are
yeah,
not straight at all. But the ones we bought yesterday were all perfectly straight. They were a little bit skinny for my liking, but
yeah,
who cares?
how funny.
But yeah, I love the branding of, there there's
I'm perfect,
there's no
yeah,
different, there's like an apostrophe is the only difference between
mhm,
imperfect and I'm perfect.
yeah,
And I think that's such a key place to come back to, is that we're all on a journey, we're all learning, and I believe, I've got no evidence to back it up, but I believe to my core that we come into this world as, I hate this saying too, light and love. Like there is nothing but light and
Mhm.
love, and then we're
Yeah.
conditioned and shaped. And I would have said from birth. I'm now going from conception because I've learnt about
Mm.
inter utero traumas, which is
Mhm.
a whole other conversation. But we come in as innocent and unimaginable. Like there's so much.
Yeah.
And then we are exposed to the nervous system of our mother while we're in utero. And then we come
Oh.
into the world and we're exposed to everything else. And it's really the core crud crust model, which I use a Ferrero Rocher as an example of. So
Mhm.
in the middle of the Ferrero Rocher, and I'm more than content to be like, I'm looking for the nut within. Like I'm quite content to view myself as the
Uh-huh.
nut within. Not everyone's going to be content with that metaphor. That's fine. Find your own metaphor. This is mine.
Yeah.
But within the middle of the Ferrero Rocher, there is the nut at the core, and that is delightful and pure and wonderful and
Mhm.
all of those things. And then it gets covered in like weird gooey mess. Very delicious weird gooey mess
It
in the
is
context of
delicious
the
gooey
Ferrero
mess. Yes.
Rocher. The
Uh-huh.
Nutella factory, so the Ferrero Rocher factory is
Mhm.
in my town. Like
No kidding.
I live in the town where Ferrero Rochers are made.
Do they do tours?
I have no idea. I've never been. I'm sure they probably do. You know how when you live somewhere you don't even think about that.
Our boat is like 20 minutes down the road from the Jelly Belly factory,
Ah, very cool.
and they have amazing tours. Like I went there one day being like, how interesting could this be? It was fucking fascinating.
I will now look into if they do
Mhm.
tours. I don't know that
Yeah.
they do. So you've got the nut in the middle, and then you've got all of this weird gooey stuff, delicious weird gooey stuff in the Ferrero Rocher, which is why I love the
Mhm.
metaphor, because the original way I was taught this, it talks about that being the crud. And
Mhm.
crud just gives a really weird connotation. Delicious, gooey, Nutella-y goodness is a much
Yeah.
more delightful thing. And then on the outside, so what happens is we've got the nut within, and then there's this weird gooey stuff that we gather, but it's really hard to hold all of that together. And so we create this
Mhm.
casing. And that's the same for us as people. There's the nut within, then there's all of this conditioning and weird shit that we've gathered along the way. And then there is the mask that we put on for the outside world. And what I love most about the Ferrero Rochers, as the example, is that it's then coated with the fragments of the nut within. And so that metaphor, that's how I see us. And my perception is that our goal is to get back to the nut within. And the
You
problem is,
turned us little.
I turned you little. I don't think I turned you little. There's a cause and effect violation. I'm delighted to have the littles. When we crack the crust, we're faced with the weird gooey stuff,
It's
and
not your fault.
we've
It's well, talking about the candy and the silly nuts and the yummy goo, and we like it because we can be all the fun nuts inside and still
yeah,
be delicious all the way, and, that's okay.
yeah. Yeah, well, I'm talking about the core and the innocence. You are the representation of that. You are that. And
The littles, we're the most important alters in the system.
absolutely. And for
Mhm.
everyone connecting, my kids are not enjoying me connecting with my littles because we hung out the other day and I came off that call and my littles were very, very, very like at the edge. I don't switch in the same way that the system does for you, but there is
Uh-huh.
definitely, and they're like, and I said I was hanging out with Ian and the littles. Tori's like, I know. And can you not now? Like,
Oh, no. Oh, no.
she was not
Well,
fond of me
and
being
that
little.
that can hurt little's feelings too.
My littles are my littles are pretty resilient, and they didn't listen. Like they just did what they wanted to do. It didn't matter what
Well,
she
you
said.
already know that in our system, when the littles want to front, we do,
You do. And
but only when it's safe.
yeah. Well, and I think for everybody, So many of us are suppressing that. And then they've got to come out
Mhm.
in weird and wonderful ways. If we want to look at why we're self-sabotaging, it's because we're neglecting parts of ourselves. We started with that with
And
my scrapbooking stuff. I am not getting rid of the scrapbooking stuff because whatever that
mhm.
part of me is went, until you see us and acknowledge us, we're going to make you hold on to this identity that keeps us valid and relevant.
Yes, that part still has things to say and contributions, and you need to love them and pay attention to them. Otherwise, they will do something destructive. When the bigs were not paying attention to us as littles, we would come out and do things like drink poison or,
Mm,
say mean things to people.
yeah,
Um, but now we are listened to and we get to do fun things like talk to you and help with important things and color and go to the movies.
yeah. And it matters. We
Mhm.
need to connect with that. And it matters to remember as we're wading through all of the conditioning, at the core there is that joy.
Mhm.
So most people are wading through their conditioning without looking for the light inside. And there
Mm.
is a light inside, and we all deserve to connect with that.
Conditioning, is that the word that means, like, the stuff we were taught, all the stuff we were taught?
All the stuff we were taught. Yeah. So
Yeah. See, people lied to us when they taught us about ourselves, is kinda how we think of it. People taught
yeah,
us lots of lies about ourselves, and the shame we feel is really just all the lies that other people told us.
that has got to be one of the best descriptions I've heard of it. It is it is all the stuff that we learn that's just not true.
Mhm.
It's
And we
it's
don't
all
believe that stuff, and we know it was lies. We still sometimes feel the shame, but we're getting a lot better about it.
yeah. And this is where when we go back to our Ferrero Rocher, we've got to crack open the wafer,
Mhm.
suck
Mm.
out all the gooey stuff, and find
Yeah.
the nut within.
Yeah.
And what I see too much in the personal development world is people getting stuck on tell me about your goo. I don't care about your goo. I care about your light. I
Mhm.
care about the nut within.
Yeah.
And yeah, the conditioning's there, and yeah, we've got to move through it. And it's one of those like it's we're going on a bear hunt. Do you ever read that book? We're going on a bear hunt.
Mm-mm. No.
The littles are going to have to go to YouTube and look up "We're going on a bear hunt." But we're going on a bear hunt, and they encounter all kinds of things. So it's like squishy grass.
Mm.
Going on a bear hunt. Uh-oh, there's squishy grass. We
Oh.
can't go over it. We can't go under it. We can't go around it. We have to go through it. And then you squish the
Mm.
grass. Squish, 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 squish.
We like that.
And
Is that a book?
then,
We
yeah,
can get
it's a
it from
book.
our library.
Yeah, you can get it from the library. It's one I read with my kids a lot when they were little. And there's
Mm.
YouTube videos of people reading it. And it's one we used to do at playgroup. So we'd set up like obstacle courses with mud puddles
Mm.
and things that they
Yeah.
and it the concept of it is we'll encounter things. So we're going on a bear hunt and we're going on a light hunt. We're looking for the nut within, and we're gonna go
Yeah.
in and we're gonna encounter stuff. We're gonna encounter shame, and we're gonna encounter fear, and we're gonna encounter all kinds of emotional obstacles on this journey,
Does
and we
encounter
can't go
mean
over
find?
them. What was that?
Does encounter mean find?
Yes, find. Yeah.
Find. Or
Yeah. So we're
meet?
gonna meet.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
gonna meet all kinds of emotions, and there's gonna be shame and fear and overwhelm, but we can't go over them. We can't go under them. We can't go around
Mm.
them. We just have to go through them. We have to feel them fully because suppressing them creates problems and pain generally in our bodies. And if we feel the
We
feelings, they
we tell our feelings
go,
thank you,
yeah,
or thank you for the information is what we tell them.
yeah, which is tied into the feelings of feedback. It's just information. It tells us
Mhm.
something, and sometimes it tells us something that's not aligned or mismatched or doesn't fit with what we want. And sometimes it tells us information that this thing is what we want. So if we're feeling frustration, something is undesired. It's not what we like. If we're feeling satisfaction, it's exactly what we want. And we just got to do things, more things. And this is where the littles are such a gift. So we've got to do more things that make us feel good.
Well, we think that's a good idea for everybody because everybody has littles inside too.
Yeah. Yeah, the littles are the people that can tell us what feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Who did we who were we before we were taught not to be? And the littles are who we were before we were
Well, we
taught
were
not to be.
little.
Yeah, we were little.
Our body was little then. It's not little now, but it used to be little.
Yeah.
And we when our body was little, all we did was we just wanted to be happy and love everybody around us. And we don't know why that's so hard. People don't seem to like that sometimes.
People don't like that because it threatens them, and generally the magical big people in our worlds have forgotten to do what they love, and so they get resentful and bitter and frustrated when they see somebody that does. And instead
It's
of
because they are not loving their littles, and so then they feel bad about themselves when they see somebody who is loving their littles. That's what we think.
yeah, yeah, and so when they see someone that is little, full of love and delight and joy, instead of learning from it and embracing it, they try and stop them being that and
Yeah.
try and make them feel bad too. It's like, I feel bad, so you have to feel bad. It's tension
Mm-hmm.
tagging, and it's mean, and it's not nice. And most people are completely unaware that that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if everybody learnt to embrace their littles, the world would be a much better place.
We think so too. We also really have to go to the bathroom.
Thank you for coming and joining us.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording and let you go to the bathroom, and then we might just finish our conversation when you get back very briefly. But
Okay. We'll
thank you
be
very
right
much.
back. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. To anyone watching, if you want to engage further in the conversations, I love hanging out with Ian. I really love hanging out with the littles in the system. It truly is a delight. I would invite you to, if you're not already in the community, join the community. If you are in the community, you can upgrade and become a part of this podcast recording. I'll put the details for that in the comments below. I will connect with you all soon.